James Harlow was never an ideal bartender. He didn't chat with customers, didn't make jokes, didn't talk about the day's gossip. The 55-year-old man who had worked at the Grand Plaza Hotel's luxury bar for 5 years only prepared perfect drinks and barely spoke. Customers called him Robot or Silent One. Sometimes they mocked him directly to his face. "Hey, Silent, do you charge extra for talking?" Rich guests would laugh at his expressionless face. That night at a gala honoring a former senator, when 5 masked gunmen stormed the ballroom, no one knew that James was actually a legendary agent known by the code name Shadow in the Secret Service, who had protected 3 presidents, and they were about to find out. Have you ever wondered what people hide behind their silence? Keep watching, quiet people. Their story will eventually reveal itself. Did you really think you retired? Hayes continued. You left active duty, yes. But did you think we completely discarded you? You're one of our most valuable assets, Sullivan. Welcome to Best Honor Stories. Before we continue, tell us in the comments which city in the world you're watching this video from today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, hit that subscribe button to help us preserve these valuable memories. The Grand Plaza Hotel was one of Washington, D.C.'s most prestigious accommodations. It was famous for its high-ceilinged lobbies, crystal chandeliered ballrooms, and impeccable service. It was a frequent stop for the city's diplomatic circle and elite business world. One of the hotel's most praised features was the lobby bar called the Golden Salon. Every evening at exactly 4 o'clock, James Harlow would take his place behind the bar counter. His dark hair, beginning to gray, was always meticulously combed, his black vest perfectly ironed. He had been working as the hotel's head bartender for 5 years. Management appreciated him for his perfect drinks and reliability. Customers, however, at least most of them, were bothered by his silence. "Hey, Silent," another old-fashioned called Robert Keller, the CEO of a famous defense company. "And maybe this time you can manage a thank you, huh?" James merely nodded slightly and began preparing the drink. Keller and his friends snickered. "Seriously," Keller said to those at his table, "this guy is either mute or a complete psychopath. I've been coming here for 5 years and we've never had a single normal conversation." "Maybe he just doesn't want to talk to you, Bob," said the woman beside him, Sarah Jenkins. She was a well-known columnist for the Washington Post. "No, he's the same with everyone," said Richard Torres, a lobbyist. "I tried to chat with him last week. Not a single word came out of his mouth." Behind the bar counter, James Harlow continued his work. Every movement was efficient and precise, none of his effort wasted. He heard the conversations, of course. He always did. During his 23-year career in the Secret Service, he had perfected the art of listening. James's identity at the hotel was quite simple: a quiet, somewhat odd bartender who did his job perfectly. His real story was much more complex. His real name wasn't James Harlow. His true identity was Michael Sullivan, the former operational leader of the Secret Service's top presidential protection team. He was known by the codename Shadow because he had the ability to be almost invisible until it was time to act. Sullivan had protected 3 different presidents, prevented 12 assassination attempts, and correctly identified dozens of threat analyses. But 5 years ago, a tragic incident during a protection detail had changed his career and life. A diplomat he was assigned to protect had been caught in crossfire and was seriously injured. Sullivan had saved the man, but had also suffered severe wounds to his shoulder and chest. He had recovered physically, but psychologically, his active duty life in the Secret Service was over. He had officially retired and started a new life with the identity of James Harlow. Bartending provided a calming routine, controlled, predictable, safe. That night, there was a special event at the Grand Plaza. A charity gala was being held in honor of former Senator William Anderson. Anderson had served as an influential member of the Foreign Relations Committee and was now the president of an important foundation. Hotel management had taken measures, supported by special security teams. About 200 guests were attending the event: politicians, business people, diplomats, and media members. James had been assigned to the special bar set up in the hotel's grand ballroom. As usual, he worked quietly, preparing drinks, acknowledging greetings with nods. Senator Anderson approached the bar with his wife Elizabeth and several important guests. "Mr. Harlow," Anderson said with a smile, "can we get one of the Grand Plaza's best Manhattans?" James nodded slightly and began preparing the drink. It wasn't surprising that Anderson remembered him by name. The senator was a man who paid attention to details. James had seen Anderson at the White House a few times, though of course the senator didn't know that. While serving the drinks, James's attention was caught by a movement in the ballroom. Two security guards at the entrance door had suddenly fallen to the ground. His old reflexes immediately kicked in. His eyes locked on the door. His muscle memory activated. 5 men entered the ballroom wearing black masks. 2 had automatic weapons. The others had handguns. The man who appeared to be the leader fired a shot, shattering part of the large chandelier overhead. Glass pieces fell to the floor, and people screamed. Everyone on the ground. The masked man shouted. In the moment of panic, most people froze. Some hid under tables, others screamed and tried to run, but the armed men had positioned themselves strategically. Doors were closed, exits were blocked. James continued cutting a lemon with his knife, as if nothing had happened, acting as if nothing was wrong. Avoiding suspicion was crucial. His eyes scanned the room, identifying each threat, each potential weapon, each exit point, creating a map in his mind. "You, bartender," yelled the masked leader. "Put your hands on your head and come here." James quietly slid the knife under the counter and did as he was told. He stood in front of the masked man with his usual expressionless look. "Where are the phones and emergency buttons?" the man asked, pointing his gun at James's chest. James indicated the emergency button under the bar with his index finger. His silence had now become an advantage. Because he didn't speak, the men thought he was actually mute. "Can't you speak?" asked the masked man. James shrugged. The man smiled. "Perfect. At least we won't waste time on interrogation." The masked men quickly took control of the ballroom. One found and disabled the security cameras. Others gathered the guests in the center of the ballroom. Senator Anderson and other VIP guests were specially placed in a corner. James was slowly pushed to the edge of the counter. He was evaluating scenarios in his mind. 5 armed attackers, 200 hostages, limited exit options. Though he had physically recovered, he still wasn't his old self, and he hadn't been on active duty for 5 years. But his training and instincts were still intact. The masked man, who appeared to be the leader, took a microphone on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, don't worry. If our demands are met, no one will be hurt. We're interested in certain individuals here tonight. The rest of you are just collateral." James noticed the leader's accent, a slight Eastern European accent. This was probably a professional team, not a random robbery. The leader's posture and way of speaking indicated military training. The masked man continued. "Now we'll collect your phones and communication devices. Any attempt at heroics will have deadly consequences." The attackers began collecting devices from the guests. One approached the bar slowly and placed a box in front of James. "Where's your phone, mute?" James pointed to his pockets, showing they were empty. "Good," said the man, then turned to other guests. James quickly evaluated his options. Minimizing danger, protecting the guests, especially high-value targets like Senator Anderson, should be his priority. He needed perfect timing. If he rushed, he could make the hostage crisis worse. Under the bar counter, James slowly found a button with his fingers, the bar's alarm system. By pressing it 3 times, he sent a special signal. This was a code known only to security personnel and sent a silent alarm to the Grand Plaza Security Center. Under normal circumstances, he would never do this, but this was not a normal situation. Tension was rising in the ballroom. Some guests were crying, others praying quietly. The masked leader spoke again. "Senator Anderson, would you please step forward?" From the VIP section in the corner of the ballroom, the elderly senator stood up. "What do you want?" he asked, his voice surprisingly resolute. "From you." The masked man laughed. "Information, specifically about Project Athena." James's ears perked up. Project Athena was a top-secret military operation. Even James knew only the name. "Oh, you do?" said the masked man. "You were the top member of the Foreign Relations Committee. You were the chairman of the Special Operations Subcommittee. You approved the project's funding." Anderson didn't respond. The masked man grew impatient. "Either you tell us the details, or the guests here will start dying one by one." This indicated to James that it was time to act. He couldn't wait for the situation to deteriorate. He secretly looked around. 5 attackers, 5 guns, 2 automatic, 3 handguns, all in professional stances, alert. His only advantage was the element of surprise. The leader stepped down from the stage and approached Anderson. "Maybe we should make an example," he said, pointing his gun at the senator's head. James coughed slightly. This was his first sound in the room, and it caught the attention of several people. Then he dropped the glass in his hand. The glass hit the floor with a sound and shattered. "You," the leader shouted. "What are you doing?" James shrugged and bent down to pick up the glass pieces. "Forget about him," the leader told one of his men. "He's just a stupid mute." And this was the moment James had been waiting for. With a hand movement, he grabbed a sharp piece of glass from under the bar counter, and in one fluid motion threw it at the nearest armed man. The glass lodged in the man's hand, causing him to drop his gun. At the same time, James jumped over the bar counter and moved faster than he had in years. Training and experience kicked in. His first move was to neutralize the man who had dropped his gun. With a series of precise strikes, he brought the man down. He took the gun and used it as protection against other threats. Panic broke out in the ballroom. People were screaming and running. The leader and other men were now focused on James. "Kill him," the leader shouted. James was already in motion. He pointed his gun at a man away from the leader and shot him in the shoulder, a non-lethal but incapacitating shot. Then, running between tables, he targeted a second man. The shot hit. The man was wounded in the leg and fell to the ground. 2 men had been neutralized. 3 remained. The leader and 2 assistants were still dangerous. They were now hiding behind tables and guests. "I don't know who you are," the leader shouted, "but you can't kill us all, and you can't save the guests." James didn't answer. He moved silently, constantly changing his position. For a moment he made eye contact with Senator Anderson and signaled he wanted him to lie down. The senator immediately did as instructed. Using a fallen table as protection, James made eye contact with the leader. His gaze conveyed the message, "Surrender." The leader laughed. "Are you mute too, or too scared to speak?" This was the moment James spoke for the first time. His voice was calm, authoritative, reflecting years of command experience. "Surrender. There's no way out of here." The leader's eyes widened. "Who are you?" "It doesn't matter," said James. "Drop the weapons. No one will be hurt." The leader thought for a moment, then smiled. "I don't think so," he said, and suddenly pointed his gun at a nearby woman, Sarah Jenkins. James moved with reflex speed. He quickly picked up a champagne bottle from the floor and threw it at the leader. The bottle hit the leader's arm, preventing him from aiming. The shot hit the ceiling. James used this moment of distraction to lunge at the leader. The 2 men collided and fell to the ground. With a series of agile moves, James neutralized the leader and took his gun. The remaining 2 attackers now turned their attention to him. "Drop your weapons," James shouted, now pointing the leader's gun at them. The men hesitated. For a moment, James was concerned that the situation might get worse. Then, the doors to the ballroom opened, and a SWAT team entered. The silent alarm James had sent had worked. "Police! Everyone on the ground!" shouted the SWAT leader. The remaining attackers had no choice but to surrender. Within minutes, the situation was under control. The armed men were handcuffed. The wounded were taken for treatment. James quietly withdrew to the side. He hoped to return to his role as the silent bartender, but it was too late. He was surrounded by curious looks and surprised faces. The SWAT leader, Captain Rodriguez, approached him. You single-handedly neutralized 3 armed men." James shrugged. "I just got lucky," he said. "Lucky?" Rodriguez didn't believe it. "May I ask who you are?" Before this question could be answered, Senator Anderson intervened. "This man is a hero," he said. "He saved our lives." The surrounding guests began to applaud. James was uncomfortable. Drawing attention was the opposite of Secret Service training. As the SWAT team evacuated the guests, a man stood to the side in a black suit with an earpiece. James recognized him immediately. A Secret Service agent. The man approached him. "Michael Sullivan?" he asked, lowering his voice. James nodded. "Would you follow me, sir?" said the agent. "The director wants to speak with you." James hesitated for a moment. He had stayed away from his old life for 5 years. Returning now evoked complex feelings. As they walked down the corridor, Senator Anderson stopped them. "Mr. Harlow, or whatever I should call you, I wanted to thank you." James smiled slightly. "James is fine, Senator, and you're welcome." Who are you really?" Anderson asked. "Just a bartender," said James. Anderson smiled. "I don't think so, but whoever you are, you saved many lives today. I'm grateful." James bowed his head and continued following the Secret Service agent. They entered a room, and the agent closed the door. Inside, an older man stood in front of a screen, Secret Service Director Richard Hayes. "Sullivan," Hayes said from the screen, "or should I call you Harlow now?" "Director," James replied. "I can explain how this happened." Hayes raised his hand. "No explanation needed. We saw everything. You did an extraordinary job today, as always." "I was just there by chance," said James. "Chance?" Hayes laughed. "Why do you think you've been working at the Grand Plaza for 5 years? That hotel is one of the most strategic points in Washington. VIPs, foreign diplomats, senators. We went to great lengths to keep you there." James was surprised. "What? Did you really think you retired?" Hayes continued. "You left active duty, yes. But did you think we completely discarded you? You're one of our most valuable assets, Sullivan." James stood silently, trying to process this information. For 5 years he thought he had been living a normal life, but apparently he was still on some kind of duty. "What do you want?" he finally asked. "We want you back," said Hayes. "Not in the field, in training, to train the new generation of agents. Your experience and expertise, they're invaluable." James paused. Returning to his old life. He had never thought this could happen. "I need to think about it," he finally said. Hayes nodded. "Of course. But remember, Sullivan, or Harlow, you're a hero, and today you proved that once again." A few hours later, James Harlow exited through the staff entrance of the Grand Plaza Hotel. Media had gathered in the lobby to report on the hero bartender who had survived the hostage crisis. But James was already gone, invisible as always. Walking on the street, his cell phone rang, a special line he hadn't used in 5 years. "Yes?" he answered. "Sullivan," said Hayes's voice. "About Project Athena, the thing Anderson mentioned. There are things you need to know. Come to the office tomorrow." James hung up the phone, stopped, and looked at the sky. Perhaps Secret Service agent Michael Sullivan had always continued to live inside James Harlow. And perhaps now it was time for the two to merge. Bars, restaurants, and hotels are full of all kinds of people. Some tell their stories loudly, others wait quietly until it's time to show their abilities, like James Harlow, because sometimes the most ordinary-looking people are the ones with the most extraordinary stories. Thank you for watching Best Honor Stories. If this story touched you, share it, subscribe, and help these silent heroes' voices continue to be heard. We'll see you in the next story.